What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Journey to Win. I'm your host, Brandon Thornhill. Super excited to bring you guys a former Navy SEAL now. He is literally performing at the top of his game. You guys are going to be blown away at his story, because I've been blown away at his story of where he's been and where he's at today. Remi Adeleke, is that how you say your name?
Yes, sir. That's good. That's good enough, brother.
That's a tough last name, bro. That's a tough last name.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough one, but it's all good.
That's why everybody just has to say, "Hey, Remi." That's good. That's easy.
Yeah, I've always just called you Remi. And I said, "Hey, it's Adeleke, right?" You're like, "No."
Yeah.
He's the author of the acclaimed memoir Transformed. He's born in Western Africa. Following his father's death, his mother, brother, and he relocated permanently to the Bronx in New York City. I'm sure he'll talk about that, guys. After years of making regrettable decisions, Remi joined the Navy in 2002 and later became a Navy SEAL. And after a successful career in 2016, he was led to pursue business consulting and filmmaking, which I'm excited to talk about. Now he's a writer, he's an actor. He's known for the movie Ambulance. He was in Special Forces, World's Toughest Test, and the movie Plane. And also he just wrote recently the movie The Unexpected, which we're going to dive into here in a second. Now he resides in Southern California with his wife, Jessica, and their 3 sons and daughter. Remi, what's up, man? Welcome to the podcast, my friend.
What's up? What's up, brother? Thanks for having me on, my man.
Dude, nice to have you. I know I've been following you on social media for quite some time. I was telling you earlier, I've never actually officially met you, but the SEAL teams are very small, so we always hear of each other, of course.
Absolutely.
So I always start off with one question, Remi, and that's what is winning to Remi? What does that mean to you? Because this is the journey to win.
Yeah. What does winning to me mean? Well, I would say coming from a fatherless home and because of the absence of my dad, going down a dark path and making a lot of bad decisions before joining the Navy. Now, as a father myself, winning is being able to provide a good life for my kids, being present in my kids' lives, teaching them, my boys, how to be men, teaching my daughter how to be loved by a man. And the ultimate win is when they grow into adulthood and they're assets to society. So that to me is winning, being a father and raising up my legacy to do great things.
Man, what a great response. I love that. Especially I have 2 girls now, so I can relate. I'm sure anybody who has kids can relate to that. So tell me about
those girls got you wrapped around their finger, huh?
Man, there's no doubt, man. There's no doubt. I thought I knew what true love was. That's how it is with my
daughter.
Yeah, I thought I knew what true love was until you have girls.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it changed everything.
Absolutely. Everything.
So tell me, I know you were born in Nigeria, right?
Yep.
And you come from
I was born into riches and wealth. My dad was a very successful entrepreneur, businessman, you name it, he did it. He owned an engineering firm that didn't just operate in Nigeria, but actually started in the West and the UK and the US. He was on the board of the World Trade Center in New York City, on the board of the British Financial Planning Council in Great Britain. And after he amassed his wealth, he came back to Nigeria because he wanted to create an African World Trade Center in Lagos, and somewhat of like a Wall Street in Lagos, because Africa is very rich in resources, from oil to gold to cocoa to natural gas, even to minerals. There's a lot of stories coming out of Africa now where China's going in and they're buying up land and cutting these deals to be able to go in and mine these mines essentially and take these resources. And so because of how rich Nigeria is in resources, my dad wanted to create some form of organization via one of the first man-made islands in the world, Lagoon City. So after he created that, I was born around that time in 82. And so we had absolutely everything. We had cars, nannies, drivers, traveled the world, ate the finest food. My mom and dad would host lavish parties. I remember years after my dad died, being in our apartment in the Bronx and finding a letter from Ronald Reagan and the White House that was written to my dad. So he was well ahead of his time. And but unfortunately, Nigeria historically has been a very corrupt nation. and almost every country has corruption in, but theirs is very systemic and very overt. And so, long story short, after my dad formed this island, which is now known as Banana Island, it was originally known as Lagoon City. The Lagos state government came in and said that the federal government was never supposed to sell my dad the swamp that essentially he turned into an island. And all of my dad's assets and finances were wrapped up in this island, so much so that my mom would tell my dad all the time, hey, Bio, we need to put some money in the U.S. because I don't trust the system. My mom was American. My mom and dad met in New York City. And after they got married, she moved to Nigeria. So she didn't trust the system. And she said to him, if the Nigerian government does what we know they can do, we'll lose absolutely everything. But my dad was so loyal to his country and to his people that he would, tell her, hey, let me get this island fully set, the buildings built, the Twin Towers, which he had the same architect of the World Trade Center. Twin Towers in New York City was the same architect of the Twin Towers that was supposed to be on Lagoon City. He said, let me get all of that established and then I'll start putting money in the U.S. And that was essentially his downfall because, as I mentioned, the Lagos state government came in and they conveniently waited until the island had been formed and buildings were starting to be built upon it to say, oh, the federal government was never supposed to sell you this. And, they could have said that to him freaking months, years earlier before you started dredging. They saw all equipment coming in. They saw the engineers from the Netherlands coming in. But again, corruption. And my dad went to court. And started fighting the government and died 3 weeks later, very mysteriously. And so that's kind of how it all came about. And we went from rich to poor. And my mom, being an American, she wasn't going to raise us in Nigeria. So she brought us to the States, and I grew up in the Bronx.
Wow, man, that's a crazy, powerful story at the same time, man.
Yeah.
So after, doing what you did, and we'll get to that here in a second, in the SEAL teams, do you feel like there was any American corruption in all of that as well? I'm just curious.
American corruption and what happened to my dad?
Yeah.
Because not at all. It was all Nigerian corruption. No, I mean, this was all this. I mean, to this day, our family security guard is the manager of the island that my dad, built. So it was not just people that were outside of my dad's circle, but people within his circle that played a role in his demise. So yeah, wow. As far as America, it's impossible for me to see America, coming and doing something shady, but for sure the Nigerian government.
Oh yeah. That's wild. So even some of his friends turned on him. Jeez.
Oh, 100%. Yep. 100%. His bodyguard is now the manager of the island. They're generals and politicians that were my dad's friend. They have compounds on this island, and they're getting cuts from it. As a matter of fact, I had a Nigerian tell me a couple weeks ago that the guy who was the governor of Lagos when that happened is now the president of Nigeria. And during his campaigning, he said that he was the one that founded Banana Island. So, and he was one of my dad's friends as well.
So being a movie writer,
yeah.
Is there a movie coming out eventually?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, the movie's done. Wrote the screenplay. It's already in the can. Even did a rewrite on it to cut down the page count. And it's going to be epic, man. It's going to be epic. It's going to be eye opening. It's going to be educational. It's going to be really inspiring. That was one of the big messages I got from people who read Transform the memoir was just how inspiring it was and how it made them look at their own lives and question decisions they made and decisions they're making so that they could be better people. And so I really wanted to be able to capture that same level of inspiration that's in the book and in the film. And I truly believe that it's probably going to be even more inspirational than the book.
When can people expect that to come out?
It's a fantastic question, man. The script's done, but there's a writer strike happening right now, and there's an actor strike, and so it's throwing absolutely everything in a disarray. I have another project, an organ harvesting feature film that's supposed to go into production mid-July. We're supposed to be in Dominican Republic filming right now, but the strikes shut everything down. So now I'm in a position where I got to wait and see what happens. Hopefully we can get some waivers to get that film into production because I can't work on Transformed until after after unexpected redemption is done.
Okay, so since you just brought it up, let's transition into that. So obviously we'll talk about the Navy SEAL story here in a second, but you were a Navy SEAL
Yeah.
and operating at the highest level, and then you went over and went into the movie realm, an actor realm. But how did
Yep.
you and why did you want to get into the I guess political, unexpected movie realm of talking about child and sex trafficking? I mean, I love it. I think it's amazing. But they just did the movie Sound of Freedom, and man,
Yeah.
I went and watched that movie. I loved it, man. So
Yeah.
talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, after I got out of the teams in 2016, still felt that pull to serve. I think all of us do. Every person is, regardless of what branch or what level of, in the military they serve in, they still feel that pull to serve after they get out. And so I was feeling the same way. And so I would volunteer with a bunch of different nonprofits, most of them inner city nonprofits, since I came from the inner city. And the type of nonprofit that kept on reaching out to me was human trafficking nonprofits. I would have, one year I had this one nonprofit from Sacramento reach out to me and say, "Hey, we have a huge human trafficking issue up here in Sacramento. Can you come out and help out and volunteer?" I didn't even know what human trafficking meant. But I went up and learned a lot. It was really eye opening, especially, finding out that this is what happens on our own soil. You know what I mean? And then another nonprofit reached out to me, and another, and then interesting, OUR actually reached out to me at some point, and I did a trip with them down to DR and Haiti, and that was even more eye opening, just being down there, and we were in this particular slum where the parents would sell their daughters to traffickers, and the traffickers would bring their daughters to the northern part of DR, where Americans and other Westerners would come pay for sex with these girls 11, 12, 13 years old. And so we were in this slum to educate the parents, and essentially, they kind of knew what was happening, but to just really go a little bit farther, and then also, try and provide some resources for them to keep them from selling their daughters. And I just remember being completely dejected. It was hard for me as a father to wrap my mind around somebody selling their own kids. And our guide noticed how perturbed I was, and he recognized that I wouldn't be able to do my job properly if I was not in a proper mental state. So he pulled me into this chapel in this slum that was no bigger than the size of 2 toilet stalls. At the end of the chapel was a dead 6-month-old baby in a casket. There was a funeral service that was going on, and the guide explained to me that the reason why the baby died was because the mother's breast milk ran out because she wasn't getting enough food, and so she mixed the formula with the local slum water, and that's what ultimately killed the baby. So what he was trying to explain to me was, "Remi, like, I know that this is a tough pill to swallow, but you need to get some understanding." And essentially what he was saying was, this is their plight. They're desperate. Either they sell one of their daughters and the rest of their kids and have food and water, or they don't, and all their kids die. And it still doesn't justify the action, but it did help give me that level of understanding so I could be more effective in what I was there to do. And so that trip was what really moved me. It was other stuff that I did prior to that, but that was the one trip that really moved me. And when I got back, when I landed in Miami, I had a bunch of missed phone calls and voicemails from Michael Bay's producing partner, Mike Case. And he said, "Hey, Remi, Michael Bay's starting his new film, Six Underground. Would you be open to work on it? It's going to be with Netflix. Would you be open to being a lead consultant on the film?" And I said, "Sure." And after I hung up the phone, it was like these two worlds collided, right? This world of being in the film and TV industry and telling stories, but then also this world of human trafficking. And it was just like, if I could merge those two worlds, I think I could have a bigger impact, because, human trafficking is a very global issue. and it requires a global response, which is going to require a lot of people getting involved. And the best way to get people involved is, in my opinion, is through media. It's kind of like what we would do overseas when we were in the Middle East, or, you know, it wasn't just about going out and doing DAs. Part of it was, you know, civil affairs, winning hearts and minds, right? And also, you know, doing the humid stuff that I did, and I'm sure, you know, other guys, you know, did, in order to be able to get in the head of people that we're trying to partner with, so that we can get the job done, you know, from a more of a psychological standpoint. And so that's when I was like, all right, I need to use film and TV, because just like I didn't know anything about human trafficking before I was introduced to it in Sacramento in 2016, how many other people don't know about it, you know? And in fact, when most people hear the term human trafficking, they only think of sex trafficking, but that's just one piece to it. You know, organ harvesting is another subset of human trafficking. Labor, forced marriage. I interviewed a guy who was trafficked from Venezuela to Colombia, and Colombia to Mexico, with the promise of being smuggled into the U.S. So what the cartel and other nefarious groups are doing, they are recognizing how weak our American border is, and they're essentially, you know, sending out these messages to people in South America and even other parts of the world, and saying, hey, come here to this part of Mexico and pay us this amount of money, and we'll be able to get you in. And when the people are coming, they're essentially being abducted and forced into trafficking. And this particular guy was he was put in a house, and the women were used for sex trafficking. The kids were used as mules to move drugs through the border, because they're able to, those small tunnels that go from Mexico into the U.S., they can fit through those tunnels and get into the U.S. and then move the drugs in. And the men were used for other means of human trafficking, right? And so that's another form of trafficking, is drug trafficking. And so there's all these different facets of human trafficking. And again, the reason why I wanted to create the film was because I wanted to make people aware, specifically of the organ harvesting side of it, because I think sex trafficking is something that everybody's talking about. Most people know about it, because they think that human trafficking is sex trafficking, and it's not. It's just a subset of it. And so, you know, I wanted to make people more aware of the topic, but get more specific on the organ harvesting side, because you don't see a lot of films or stories about it. Now there's a lot of stories coming out in media, tons of stories. You know, there's a story a few months ago, this woman here in the U.S. who fell in love with some guy in Colombia, and she went down to Colombia, and you know, he chopped her up, took her organs, sold her organs on the black market. That's how he got caught. And her body parts washed up on the beach. Real story. I mean, it was all over the news a few months ago. There's a recent story of a girl who went down to DR to go get what did she go get? She went to go get a tummy tuck. Came back from that trip in the DR, wasn't feeling well. Doctor went to go see the doctor, and, you know, doctor couldn't figure it out. Took a MRI, X-ray, and said, you know, you only got one kidney. And she's like, what are you talking about? I should have two. So essentially, when she went down there to go get the plastic surgery, the plastic surgeon pulled out one of her kidneys, sold it on the black market. So it's a very, very wild, intricate, real business. As a matter of fact, we know that a human heart and lungs start at $130,000. Just start negotiations start at $130,000 on the black market. Kidneys and livers start around $50,000 to $60,000 on the black market. Cornea, the eyes, start around $30,000 on the black market. And there's Westerners that are taking advantage of and I won't even say taking advantage, but they find themselves in very desperate situations, and they don't want to ask questions because they're in desperate need. You know, we know that every year about 4,000 to 5,000 people die every year on the kidney transplant list, right? And so when you get people who are facing death, who are desperate, and then, you know, social media, we know that social media, I mean, that was a whole report that came out, I want to say last month, where Instagram and Facebook, it's not intentional, but it was discovered that a lot of these human trafficking rings are operating via social media, Instagram and Facebook, fake accounts, DM, during in the DM section of Instagram, you get people who, create these accounts and they search hashtags. That's why we have to be careful what we hashtag and put on social media, because you'll get somebody, and this is an example, you'll get somebody that'll have a kid that's sick and has to go to dialysis, and they'll take a picture of their kid or themselves, on dialysis, saying, "Hey, today wasn't a good day," or "Today was the best day I had at dialysis." Dialysis, hashtag sick child, hashtag XYZ, and traffickers are on the social media, tracking that stuff. And then here you go, you get this person that gets a message, "Hey, I think you could, there's this company that is that's selling, that you can get bumped up on the list to get a new organ," and they say, "Oh yeah, I'm desperate. I'll get on that list. How much does it cost? It costs this amount of money." They have back end websites. There was a story out of India. This Nigerian engineer was in India, selling organs on on this very intricate back end website that he created. So again, I know I'm saying a lot and went on the tangent, but in short, it's very real, and that was how my transition happened. I began to get exposed to it, and then as I began to learn about it, that's when I was like, I think I can have a bigger impact via film and TV versus just going down and doing this stuff as a frogman.
Well, that was that was great. I have a question on that though before we move on. So, if they're buying, the organs, like I have an issue, I go and I buy the organs. Are they just not really buying the organs? They're just taking the money on the back end, or like, what's the process from there? What happens?
Oh no, there are deals that are being brokered. They're buying an organ. It's a lot of manipulation that's taking place. So, for example, there was a big ring that was busted in Costa Rica. I want to say 2 years ago, and it was this Israeli doctor that was living in Costa Rica. He had citizenship, Israeli citizenship, but he was living in Costa Rica. And essentially, when people in Israel, when Israelis or other Westerners needed a kidney, he would essentially find or manipulate a poor Costa Rican into giving them the kidney. Obviously, they would give up a cut, and then he would then in return sell it for way more money, right? So the people who are buying the organs are getting the organs. I mean, it's a whole very intricate black market enterprise. And then the doctor would also perform the surgery. In fact, Cairo, Egypt is considered to be the organ harvesting capital of the world. And there was a organ harvesting ring that was busted in 2017 or 2016. And of the 60 people that were arrested, 45 of them were doctors and nurses. So, the doctors are performing the surgeries. They're not just taking the organ out and tricking people. They're performing the surgery. They're finding matches. They're going through the process, and they're making things happen.
That's crazy, man. So they can go watch the movie Unexpected. Where can they watch it at?
Yeah, they can watch The Unexpected on YouTube. It's free. I put it on YouTube. I invested $150,000 of my own money into that film, and I don't get paid for streams of views or anything. I didn't make it to make money, but it's all up there, and it's based on true events. I really, did the research and did everything that I needed to do to make sure that the story was as authentic as possible, and it follows the victims in it, without giving away too much, is they are part of a group. This is going to force people to go watch the film, but they're part of a group that was part of a genocide that the UN recently, and I say recently, in the last 10 years, finally recognized as a genocide. And the people within that group, the men were slaughtered for the most part, and the women and kids were trafficked, whether it was for organs, sex, and it's all well known. So it's all out there. But I don't want to give away who that group is. When they watch the film, they'll know who I'm talking about. And then they could just type in the name, Google it, and see.
Well, guys, I'll put the link in the bio to the YouTube video so you guys can just click on it and make it easy for you, because I know you guys are going to want to watch it. I'm going to want to watch it now that I've heard this. Yeah. So, hey, since you're in Hollywood, let's and we're on sex trafficking, human trafficking. Sound of Freedom just came out, and they got all these idiots. I mean, how in the world can people politicize kids getting sold off for sex and saying that it's a Trump movement, QAnon, all this crazy stuff. I mean, I know that Hollywood is left. We all know that. But I mean, are they legitimate pedophiles in Hollywood? I mean, I know you got to be careful what you say, but is that a real thing?
Yeah, I mean, as far as my experiences, I haven't experienced pedophilia. I haven't experienced being at a party or being somewhere on a movie set and seeing little kids being brought in sexualized or raped or in any way. So I haven't experienced it. I haven't seen it. I haven't heard stories of, while working on set, we all talk. I haven't heard stories of people in the business who do those type of things. There are the Harvey Weinsteins of the world. We know that, that's not, I don't know if I want to, that's definitely not child trafficking, at least from what I can recall, but he was, taking advantage of people, utilizing his power, and he did a lot of evil things. So I would say you do have those people here and there that do take advantage of their power and find, kids, find people, adults in general, who they can make do what they want to do in order to, and promise a dream or promise a wish. So, does that happen? Has that happened? Has it been reported? Yes. But as far as me seeing this widespread, pedophilia ring in Hollywood, I haven't seen it. I haven't heard it, and trust me, when I do, or if I do, everybody's they're gonna know about it because I'm gonna talk about it. But yeah, that's my 2 cents on it. As far as with Sound of Freedom and how it's being, I don't agree with how it's being blasted, right? Because like you said, it's a very important and it's a real topic. It's a real thing that happens. And so, when I hear people try to say, oh, that's just a QAnon thing, or that's just a conservative thing, it's just like, no, dude, I've worked with nonprofits in the human trafficking space that were Democrat liberal, and I worked on with human trafficking nonprofits that were, that were conservative Republican, and I work with nonprofits that were everywhere in between. So it's just sad how people try to weaponize, and I would say that it deals is probably because I know Tim, he's when he was making the film, and even before he was making the film, like he met with Trump and his daughter met with Ivanka, and there was this big initiative that was happening, and there was so many people that hated Trump, and there's Trump derangement syndrome and all of this stuff going on that they associated anything that he was for as bad, or as as I don't know, as out of the norm. And it was really weaponized. I have no dog in the fight. I'm an independent free market capitalist, so I'm not Democrat or Republican, but it was just weird how it's been weaponized. And I think because of Tim's relationship or past relationship with Trump and that administration, I think people are just like, get rid of him, get rid of him, get rid of him, and discredit the story and discredit, these events that happen as it relates to human trafficking. And that's really saddening. You know what I mean? Because and I've seen it with my own 2 eyes. So I know it happened. So, and like I said, I've gone overseas with Tim and OUR. So I know it happens, you know what I mean? And it just sucks that, people have just tried to discredit it because of the messenger, or because of the messenger's relationship with a political party, and that's one thing. And then you can go, and I hate to jump topics, and we'll come back to this, but that's one of the underlying theme in my new book, Chameleon, is the importance of political unity, because there is so much division in this country, and it's political, it's from a gender standpoint, it's from a race standpoint, it's like, and I truly believe that a lot of division is not I want to say a lot, but a chunk of the division is instigated from our enemies outside of America, because they know that if they could divide us and keep us divided, then they can destroy us. Right. Mm-hmm. And so that's an underlying theme within the book Chameleon. It really comes to the forefront. And then at the end, when it comes to the forefront, like I point to the top. I point to the fact that our division, our dislike for other groups, whether political or social or whatever the case may be, it's being driven from the top, because the top needs to keep us divided so that they can somewhat stay in power, right? They need that 55% or that 45% or that 52, 47, 48% in order to maintain power over their groups. And so it really saddens me that that it's being weaponized, especially when I know how real this issue is. It's a $130 billion plus industry globally, 30 plus billion dollar industry here in the US. And it's a massive issue. You got kids in Africa, who are being trafficked, and they're working in coal mines. They're working in mines and mining the minerals that we put on our electric cars, and batteries and all of this stuff. And they're being forced to do it for no money, and they're enslaved. And so for people to say, oh, well, human trafficking isn't real, or what happened in that film isn't real, it does happen. It's just like, come on, man. And I think another issue with it too is, the film wasn't supposed to be successful, right? And I think that, now that it has been successful, shareholders and the people who hold the purse strings are really asking questions, right? Because the film was set up at Disney and Fox, and, was set up at Fox first. Well, I know the history of the film. The film was independently financed. After it was financed and made, it was essentially sold to Fox for distribution. Fox got bought out by Disney. Disney shelved it, and then years later, the Angel Studios came in and bought the distribution rights, right? And so here's a film that wasn't supposed to succeed. And I think one of the reasons why it's being discredited is because there are people who are like, their jobs might be on the line. So they have to say, oh, well, it's because it was a QAnon. It's because of this or that, or like, they're having to create, in my opinion, I could be wrong, but I think in my opinion, one of the reasons why it's being discredited is because there are people who, on the side that should have released it and made, it's closing in on $100 million on a $14.5 million budget. It might hit $130 to $150 million. On a $14.5 million budget, that's a nice profit. On the other hand, you have Indiana Jones. It's a $300 million profit movie, a $300 million budgeted movie. That's not including prints and advertising. So, now you're talking about maybe a $450 million film altogether. I don't even think it's going to cross, $250, $300 million. So now you're looking at like a $200 to $150 million loss. So here you have this one film that released at the same time that's losing them, close to $200 million. And then you have another film that they had on their shelf that could have made them $135 million. So somebody has to try and save their job and say, oh, it's because of this. We didn't release it for a noble reason, and these are the noble reasons. But at the end of the day, it's not show friends, it's show business. It's a business. And so, the investors and the people at the top, they don't care about something. All they care about is green. Are they getting a return on their investment? So that's another reason why I think it's being chopped up and dealt with that hand.
That's a great perspective, man. And I'll just say it. I think that those guys or girl should take ownership, and they should get fired. And there's a special place in hell for them for, sitting here bashing, a movement that is clearly out there and clearly happening, and we could clearly make a difference. And you're going to come in and bring your, garbage to the table. So listen, I think that, I don't have an opinion on the pedophilia really, because I don't know about it. I'm like you, I'm pro common sense. It's like, I'm not right, I'm not left. I just think that, whether people are left, whether people are right, you can't be in this place of like following one leader. That's not it doesn't matter if you're pro Biden, pro Trump, pro next person, doesn't matter. It's like, that's how these political regimes are started and create these movements that cause massive harm. And people just got to be careful, man. And, it's like, I don't think people would ever tell you anyways, Remi, if there was a pedophilia going on. One, you're a former Navy SEAL. They'd probably think you'd kill him.
Yeah.
Two, you have an anti-sex trafficking movie out there. So I wouldn't expect they would tell you. But, I was in Afghanistan. This is normal. Like, they had chai boys in Afghanistan. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Did you go?
Yeah, I remember getting ready to go on an op, and the intel that no, actually, let's back up for a second. I remember running a source. The intel from the source
They
was that the guy we were going.
They might not know what a source is. What is a source?
Okay, so source is in the agency, 3-letter agency world, they call it a asset. In policing in America, they call informants. So since your source is somebody that helps go and helps go to acquire information for you, being a big black dude, I can't blend in Afghanistan or Iraq or fill in the blank and and be a spy incognito. So I need to have sources go and be my hands and feet essentially, and collect information and go places and do things for me. That was another reason. That was the other inspiration for Chameleon, because I had to be these different people. I had to be a chameleon with one source, a different chameleon with another source, a different chameleon with my OIC, and in order to get jobs done. But I remember collecting intel on this HVT, high value target, and the intel from the source was that he had like 2 or 3 wives, and his newest wife was like 12 years old. And his other wife was like 14 years old, and this guy had to be in his early to mid 30s. So we went on the op, wrapped up the guy during SSE, and who was there? These little girls, and these were girls that he was, I say, quote unquote, air quotes, married to. And, but I mean, that's child abuse in my opinion. You know what I mean? And, that's not appropriate. I know every culture is different, but there's no way to justify that, so, yeah. So, I mean, you touched on it lightly. That happens. And it's like, in some cases, it's like, I mean, you can't kill him for that. I mean, because he didn't have a gun and pull a gun on you. So, it was a capture kill mission. So you wish he did, so you could take him out. But the reality is, it doesn't work like that, so yeah, man.
Man, yeah, it's crazy. When I was over there, I was only like 26 years old. So I didn't have kids. It didn't really bother me as much back then, because it was like, whatever, this is just their culture. But now that I have kids, it bothers me.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, especially 2 girls. So we'll move on, man. But guys, I'll put the link down there. Check out the movie Unexpected. Go get the book Chameleon. And then, so let's talk about, how did you transition actually, because we haven't talked about this yet. How did you get into SEAL teams? Like, what was that process like? Why did you want to be a SEAL?
Yeah.
Talk about that.
No problem. I just dropped a message in the chat. You could check that real quick, just to give you a heads up. Sorry. I mean, long story short, I was selling drugs, doing all kinds of crazy stuff in the Bronx, and ended up getting involved in a deal with a drug dealer that went bad. Sold him some products that were supposed to last for a certain amount of time. Those products only lasted for a fraction of that time, and my life was threatened. And my mom's life was indirectly threatened as well. That was a huge wake up call for me. I made him back his money, decided, hey, I'm out of the game. If I keep doing this, I'm gonna end up dead or in prison. So fast forward 6 months later is when I made the decision to go join the Navy. Ran into a Navy recruiter who believed in me. I had 2 warrants out for my arrest, a warrant in New Jersey, a warrant in New York. She took me to both judges. This was 9 months after 9/11. Essentially advocated on my behalf and said, yo, this kid's made mistakes, but he has potential. Both judges expunged my record, just had to pay court fines, court fees, whatever it was. And then she went a step further, fudged the paperwork to sneak me into the Navy. That's how I got into the Navy. And then when I got to boot camp, a SEAL came to our division, played us a video of SEALs doing from SEAL stuff. And, I had seen the Rock years earlier, and that was what kind of put Navy SEALs on my radar. When he showed me that kind of sealed the deal. But I couldn't swim, didn't have the academic scores, and I was super skinny. So I had to wait till I got to my first command to take the screening test. Got to my first command, trained for like 6 months really hard, and then took the screening test, passed it 6 months after checking in, and then within a year checking into BUD/S, I was checking out and on my way to Naval Hospital and on my way to BUD/S. Got to BUD/S, made it through Hell Week, got to dive phase, got performance drop because after I made it through Hell Week, I got double rolled for swims. And then I, got to second phase. As you know, the swim times dropped from 85 minutes to 80 minutes in second phase. Failed my first 2 swims in second phase. Failed the tread 4 times. Went to an ARB board and they were like, yo, we got to kick you out. And it was all my fault because, after I made it through Hell Week, in my mind, it was like I had arrived. It's like I had arrived. Nobody can't tell me nothing. I made it through the Bronx. I made it from Africa. I'm like the only black dude in my class. I'm about to be a SEAL. Nobody can't tell me anything. So instead of showing up to remediation, I'm sure, being a BUD/S instructor, you guys would show up on the weekends to work with guys who needed stuff to work on to ensure that guys can make it through. This is post Hell Week because you want to see guys make it through. And I was too busy in the Gaslamp district chasing girls and partying and drinking it when I was waking up by the time I woke up in some girl's bed, remediation was over, So I thought I had arrived. And so I needed to get kicked out, got kicked out, but I was able to get a letter of recommendation to come back. Went to 1st Marine Division, did a year and a half there, did a deployment there in that year and a half, came back, made it through BUD/S, and graduated and got to the teams. And I was at Team 3, did some time at they used to call it SA1, but I think they changed it now to SRT1. And we did some motivated stuff and had a blast, man. Was able to, in my career, do 3 pumps and, just have a good time. And then, got out. So sorry, I'm rushing through it for the sake of, you know why, because of the chat. But
we got 4 minutes, everybody. So we got to rush through this. So
sorry about that, brother.
No, it's okay. One question, and then I want to transition to one more question, and then we'll finish.
Yeah.
So were you a corpsman then, because you were with the Marines?
Yeah. I was a corpsman. So I was a corpsman, and then I was a humid guy. So I went to, they called it ASO back in the day. I heard that they've changed that name as well. I did TSO, Narvator, a bunch of other stuff. Yeah.
Okay. So did you go SOCM? Did you SOCM route?
No. Interestingly, I did not. Right after I finished SQT, right before I was about to finish SQT, I was like, I want to go to a team. I already got dropped in dive phase, and first time I was in, but I just want to get to a team and get to work. I don't want to now go to something where else for another 6 months. So I get to my team 3, and my platoon, and I'm like, yeah. And I was over the corpsman stuff anyway. Like I wanted, I was like, yeah, I'll be a machine gunner as a new guy. I was up for anything but being a corpsman. And when I got there, my platoon chief looked at my record and he saw that, I was at 8404, a combat medic with the Marines. And he was like, you're going to be the platoon medic. I was like, well, I didn't go to 18. He's like, oh, yeah. So they sent me to soft OEMS. I went to soft OEMS and I avoided 18 Delta, and I was still the platoon corpsman. And a humid guy. I was just like, I can't get away from this thing.
Yeah. I was going to say, I'm surprised so guys, long story short, I know we're throwing a bunch of acronyms out there, but we're just talking about medical acronyms. There's different courses. So technically, Special Operations Community has a medical course that's super intense. Like, Remi, that course is crazy, dude. You go through what doctors go through in 2 years. We did it in 5 weeks. It's insane. It's intense.
Yeah.
But you know that. So I know you got 2 minutes. So let's just go at it. I wanted to get into how did you get into Hollywood, all that stuff, but we can maybe set up another future podcast. But let's get them directed to you. What's your Instagram? What's your website? Where can they find your book?
Well, I could jump on that real quick. How I got in if you want me to, and let me know. I could jump on that. It was I got out in 2016. I was I was in grad school when I was getting out, so it all worked out because I was going to go into business consulting full time. My brother-in-law is a YPOer, and so it stands for Young Presidents Organization. I'm sure you work with those guys a bunch, and so he was getting me a bunch of consulting gigs. So I was getting my master's because I didn't want to just rely on being a frogman. I wanted to have the education behind me as well. And so I was got out January. I'm still in grad school in May. And I get the phone call from this woman who worked with Michael Bay. And she was like, hey, Bay's looking for a former SEAL to work on Transformers the last night. And I was like,
easy day. You know what I mean? I was like, easy day. All I'm doing is writing papers. So I that next day I went up to set in LA. One day turned into 3 weeks, 3 weeks turned into 6 months. And then, it was after that. I still finished my grad school, but it was after that I was like, dude, I want to be in this business. I want to be a storyteller. Like, I want to be able to use my background, my experiences to tell stories that will impact people. And so, I kept on getting consulting jobs on films and commercials and TV shows. And then that kind of grew into me learning screenwriting and teaching myself screenwriting, and wrote my first screenplay, which my first screenplay was Chameleon, which is now now turned into a book. And then I wrote some other screenplays, and then I wrote a screenplay, got hired actually by Tim Ballard to adapt one of his books into a limited series. That's what got me into the WGA. And from there, I just progressed and then taught myself directing, and now I'm a writer director. So it was a progression of, really taking the time to put in the work and learn, and I use being on set as an actor and as a consultant as my film school. That was my film school, because I didn't want to go to film school. So, but yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
Well, we're going to do another podcast in the future, because I have so many questions off that. You just randomly get a referral to Michael Bay. You just self-teach yourself how to direct. I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah. No, thank you, brother. Thank you, man. Thank you, bro. People can find me. I got a unique name, Remi Adeleke. So same on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. It's all Remi Adeleke. And you can find my new book, Chameleon, wherever books are sold. You can pre-order. I don't know when this is coming out, but we're doing signed books if you pre-order between now and Tuesday at the Talk Shop Live, link in my bio. And yeah, man, appreciate you. Thank you for having me on, Brandon. Appreciate you, brother.
That's always, it's great to connect with you, man. And I'll make sure all the links are in the bio, to where, not bio, or the description of the podcast, so you guys have it. So as always, guys, comment on this, subscribe to it, share it, tag Remi, tag myself, and appreciate you guys for listening. Cheers, everybody.
Yes, sir.